Hello everyone and welcome back to another Pauper Deck Tech. This time we're taking a look at a strategy that's pretty similar to the mono white heroic strategies that have been pretty popular lately. It's pretty similar, but instead of using spells that target our creatures, we're just playing spells in general. So the list that we're going to be taking a look at is Izzet Blitz. So the deck is pretty similar to mono white heroic in the fact that we are playing spells to boost our creature's power, but the spells aren't necessarily targeting our creatures or our enchantment auras, for example. Instead, we're playing more general run-of-the-mill like cantrips and lightning bolts and other stuff like that because our creatures just get boosts in power thanks to their abilities whenever we cast instants and sorceries in general, so we're using that to our advantage. And before we begin the deck tech, I'd like to say that this deck is actually on sale. You can buy this on the Rogue Deck Builder website in the description down below. You just click on it, then you go down to the deck list, then you click on the shopping cart icon, take you to a link where you need to go to make the purchase. You can grab like sleeves and a deck box. It's a pretty sweet deal. So the first creature we're going to take a look at doesn't get a buff from sorceries or instants, but it does help out the strategy somewhat, and that card is Augur of Bolas. So this card was made as a common in Modern Masters 2017, and this card is pretty decent. You know, you play in the early game and it's a big butt, well, relatively a big butt, but it helps us find an instant or sorcery because we're playing a bunch of those in this deck, so its ETB trigger will more than likely be beneficiary to us. So the first creature we're going to be taking a look at is Kiln Fiend, and this card pretty much created this archetype back in however long it came out. I think it was like World Wake or whatever, but there were some other cards that were similar to it prior, but Kiln Fiend, just because of the cost and the amount of power boost that it gets, it was the real trendsetter, and pretty much this deck does not necessarily work without Kiln Fiend. So our next creature is Nivix Cyclops, and it's pretty similar to Kiln Fiend except that it has 1 power and it has 4 toughness, so its stats are a little bit different, and like we can't attack with it if it has defender. We're like, whatever, we cast a spell just like Kiln Fiend, it loses that defender and it becomes a big beefy beater, except this one will more than likely survive more stuff because it has 4 toughness, so at least it survives lightning bolts, so the card is pretty decent. And for the final creature in the deck, we're running a single Wee Dragonauts, and this is, as far as I can tell, this is the original like Blitz style card that Kiln Fiend and Nivix Cyclops and other creatures have been released further down the line. This is pretty much one of the first ones, if I recall correctly, and we're only playing a 1-of in here because I was playing more until I started jamming Augur of Bolas in here, and it's essentially Nivix Cyclops except it has flying, and like I understand it doesn't get as big of a boost, and yeah, it has a smaller body, but for the same cause, like getting a 5th Nivix Cyclops that has evasion, a strategy like this is running short on creatures anyway, so we'll kind of take what we can get. Most other lists don't run this, but I like to because I like this creature a lot. Starting off our cantrips, we take a look at Forge Ataxian Probe, and this card's pretty self-explanatory. You can either pay a blue mana if you want to, or you just pay 2 life, look at your opponent's hand, and draw a card. And this card is pretty key in this strategy because you, like Infect in Modern or Legacy, you want to use Ataxian Probe not necessarily as a power booster, but as a way to make sure that you can go through with your turn and essentially combo out. This deck is kind of like a combo deck where you're trying to sequence 2 to 3 to 4 spells in a single turn and attack and get in for like 12 or 15 damage, and Ataxian Probe helps us out by letting us know whether or not we're going to get hit by removal spells. So for our next cantrip, we're playing a 4 of the classic Ponder. You know, sure, we're not playing Delver of Secrets, but you know, whatever, we don't really need to in a strategy like this, and you could play Brainstorm if you wanted to, but I think cards like this and Preordain and Ataxian Probe just fit this strategy much better in my opinion. Like I said earlier, we're playing a full playset of Preordain. There's really not much to say about it because it's one of the best cantrips ever printed. Scry 2, draw a card. It's pretty much the polar opposite of Serum Visions, yet that card is kind of trash compared to this one. You know, whatever. The card's still great, and we're definitely going to jam it in this deck. So for counter magic, we begin with the 2 of Dispel, and this card pretty much protects us against like any other counter spells if we're playing against like any control decks and we need to protect our team or battle rage or anything like that, or if we're playing against like any removal heavy decks that want to use stuff like Lightning Bolt. This card is also great against that because obviously they're going to want to take out our Kiln Fiend, so we need to find a way to protect them, and Dispel helps out significantly with that. And continuing on that trend of counter spells, we also have the, well, traditional counter spell. It's like Dispel, but way better for double the cost, and like I mentioned before, this helps protect our combo essentially, or our one little guy, for pieces of removal essentially, or any other cards that could impede our strategy. We're also playing a 2 of Apostle's Blessing in here, and it's kind of like a counter spell in the fact that we give our creature protection from any color, and it's effectively the same as like nulling out a piece of removal with a counterspell. So Apostle's Blessing kind of fits that same role, but it's also double duty. Say they have a blocker that's in the way, we just cast Apostle's Blessing, give our Nivix Cyclops protection from green, for example, and then crash through, and you know, none of their elves or none of their stompy stuff can block. So this card can also be a finisher for us. We're also running a 1 of Spell Pierce in here, and it's kind of the same as Dispel, not really. I mean, it is a bit more flexible, yes, but like later in the game, it's obviously worse because your opponent is like more than likely going to have the mana to pay for that spell. So we're only just jamming a fun of in here, and if you feel the need to bring it into your meta more, you know, bring it in. But I feel like with Dispel and Apostle's Blessing and Counterspell, it's pretty much already taken care of for us. We also have a 1 of Artful Dodge. It's pretty similar to Apostle's Blessing in the fact that it gives a creature of ours evasion. But I also like this card other than other options like Distortion Strike because it doesn't have a rebound. You know, rebound is nice and all because you get it the turn afterwards, but I kind of like to be able to control whenever I get my second activation of Artful Dodge. Yeah, it is more mana technically in the long run, but for me personally, I'm just much more comfortable knowing that I can make my creature unblockable when I want to, rather than set myself up for a 2-for-1 knowing my opponent is probably going to swing in the next turn because of a rebounded Distortion Strike. We're also playing a 2 of Lightning Bolt here. It's pretty much one of the only pieces of removal in our main board, and you know, we have other pieces that we can bring in the side, but for the most part, we're going to be crashing in with creatures as fast and as hard as we can, so we're not really too concerned with, you know, picking off the board and making sure that it's safe for us to attack, because we're just going to be smashing in regardless. But, you know, if you feel the need to bring in more removal, obviously bring in more removal. But for the most part, in the main board games 1, we're not really too concerned about that. Our next card is Titan Strength, and I was debating between either this card or Mutagenic Growth, and I decided, you know, we're already playing a bunch of Titaxian Probes and Apostle's Blessing, so that's pretty costly on our life. But most other strategies for Izzet Blitz want to use Mutagenic Growth more, and I just figured, you know, I'd rather have the information that Titaxian Probe provides. So we're playing Titan Strength in its place, and it does its best brute force impression, but, you know, we also get that added Scribe benefit, and it's kind of sort of half a cantrip, so, you know, it fits this strategy pretty nicely. Our final spell for the deck is a full playset of Team Rebello Rage, and now this card is pretty much another finisher for the deck, because let's say you play 3 spells in a turn, and then you cast Team Rebello Rage, so, and let's say there's a Kiln Fiend on the board, so that's 4 spells, that's 4 triggers, let's see, 12, so that would mean Kiln Fiend is a 13-2, and then Team Rebello Strike, or Team Rebello Rage gives a double strike and trample, so effectively swings for 26 damage. Yeah, this card can pretty much blow out and finish a game for us, and while it is common knowledge for this strategy, you know, sometimes people just don't understand that they're going to get absolutely fucking blown out by what was a 1-2 is now all of a sudden a 26-2. As far as our lands are concerned, there's pretty basic stuff. You know, we're only running 8 islands, we're running 4 mountains, we're running 4 Swiftwater Cliffs, and then we're also running 2 of Izzet Boilerworks. And these cards, you know, you could change the order of them if you want. I prioritize blue in here, and we don't really have that much mana for this strategy anyways, because our deck is, well, it's full of cantrips and 1-drops and some 2-drops and maybe a couple 3-drops, but for the most part 18 lands is just right. As far as our sideboard goes, we have a 2 of Electricity in here, and you know, you can use this to take out a little 1/1 if you want to, or you just bring it in against like a Delver deck and you shoot out like 3 or 4 creatures all at once to make sure that you can swing in for the win. We're also running a 2 of Hydroblast, bring this in against like any red decks like Burn or Kodotha Boros. That deck is becoming quite popular again because it's a natural predator to all the Delver stuff that's running around, so this card is obviously good against that. And we're also running 2 of Pyroblast because, well, in case you haven't noticed, blue has always been a very popular color in Pauper, so both of these cards are pretty much interchangeable for this sideboard. You could go 3 or 1, 2 or 2, 4 and 4 if you wanted, really. It's just a meta game call, really. These are pretty much, both Pyroblast and Hydroblast are 2 of like the best sideboard cards in Pauper in general. We're also running a 1 of Relic of Progenitus. It's to fight graveyards if budget's really a concern for you, because this card is, it's unreasonably expensive for what it does. You can just go buy a Nile Spellbomb. I did say Tormod's Crypt in earlier videos, but I didn't realize that there wasn't a common printing on MTGO, so the the budget version of Relic of Progenitus pretty much is Nile Spellbomb. We also have a 1 of Flaring Pain, and you use this against like any opponents that may have like fog effects or the Fog Frog, Support Frog. This card is just a good card against that, especially since it has flashback to make sure that we can close out a game. We have a 2 of Smash the Smithereens, and you bring this in against like either Kuldotha Burrows or Affinity, which are both getting more popular, or you can go up more if you want to, but I feel like 2 is just enough. And over time, like, I like Smash the Smithereens, but I don't know. I just hope we get better options soon, because this is like, if this is kind of the best option that we have in red besides Gorilla Shaman, like, we need a Gorilla Shaman reprint really badly. We're also going to be playing a 1 of Harvest Pyre in here, and it's just essentially another piece of removal for big creatures like Ulamog's Crusher, Ancient Rotodon, or any other big gigantic fatty, because we're going to be filling up our graveyards pretty quickly with a deck like this. And we use this, and it's kind of like Delve almost with its first ability, and then we just shoot something for a billion damage, pretty much. We also have a 1 of Auraflex in here, and you bring this in against like any Bogle style decks, because this is a really good taxing strategy against them, or any other like Enchantress style effects. Auraflex will pretty much take care of that like instantly. We're also running into a Flame Slash because it's just more pieces of removal if they're playing something like Mirror Enforcer or anything with 4 toughness. This card will take care of that for you. To finish off our sideboard, we have a 1 of Stormbound Geist, and this card here, we pretty much bring this in against any Evasive Flyer decks, well, Delver, pretty much, because it's a 2 for 1. It can only block creatures with flying, sure, but you know, it's a 2-power flying dude in the air for 3 mana. You block a Delver of Secrets, it dies, comes back as a 3/3, you block another Delver of Secrets. This card is fantastic. And that's the list for you, everyone. Be sure to let me know what you think in the comment section down below, and don't forget, you can buy this deck in the description down below. All you have to do is click on the link, and then when you're on the page, you click on the shopping cart in the deck list below, and it'll take you to a link where you can buy the deck. You can also buy it with like sleeves and a deck box and stuff. It's pretty sweet. Anyways, my name's Tasty Snackies. You all have been wonderful, and I'll catch you on the flip side. Thanks for watching. Be sure to check out our playlist of Pauper content here, and also our other MTG videos here. Don't forget to subscribe and also hit that bell icon so you get notified every time we release content.